Morning, friends. Welcome back. This is Studio 101. My name is Josh Kane. This is our daily Satsang. Happy to be here. Let me turn the camera up a little bit so I get a little bit more of a straight on angle. I'm trying some lights too. There we go. All right. So here, broadcasting from my home in New Haven, Connecticut. The reason for this satsang is to bring a little bit of positivity and spirituality into your day. Wherever you're at, whatever kind of day you're having, this can be a space where you can start discovering some new facets of spirituality and of yoga that you might not have been aware existed before. Aspects like what the science of yoga is, and how do we make right choices in life? How do I discover what my reason and my value and my purpose are in this life? We have all kinds of experiences that help us to develop all kinds of beliefs about ourselves, and not all of those beliefs are necessarily serving. So in order to discover what it is that I'm actually here to do, why was I created, and what's the point of all this, I have to go through a series of steps. I have to go through a logical, ordered series of steps. And they can't just be steps that I make up, because if I'm the one that got myself into this debacle of not knowing who I am and what I'm here to do in the first place, then I can't really, the solution's not going to come from the problem. So what I have to learn how to do is I have to learn how to go within and first accept and understand that any place you're at, any place you're at is the place that you need to be at. That's the right place for you to be in order to create a change. Second, not everything about you has to change. Because how you're made, what you believe, and how you feel are perfect exactly the way that they are. The difference with this is that you're learning how to evolve yourself and how to create progress in your spiritual life and create progress in your human life also. You might think that they're one and the same, and they kind of are, but they also kind of are not. The spiritual life is something that you can choose to make public if you want to, but usually it will stay a little bit more private, because it's a connection that you have within your heart with divinity. And knowing that every person has their own unique connection to divinity in their heart, we respect and acknowledge that everyone is going to embody or value or express that connection in their own way. And that our responsibility as individuals, as yogis, as practitioners, is to keep the focus on ourselves, less projecting onto others what we feel like they could do and what we in our hearts know that we need to do. And then learning how to move your body to release stored tension. And while you're moving your body, asking yourself, how did I come to feel the way that I feel? What are the things that I've gone through in my life that have caused me to that have shaped my perspective and shaped my beliefs? And you might find that some of those events you're still holding on to as though they're still happening now. And that is causing you in this moment to make decisions that are not wholly and entirely accurate because they're based on something that is no longer true. It was true then, but it's not true now. And getting to a point where you can start to see the difference in your mind between a reaction to the past, a reaction to the present based on past experiences, or a reaction to the present with a projection towards the future. That's the spiritual science of yoga. That's the spiritual science of choice. Choice is the whole discussion here. And it's the whole discussion in here too. In the Bhagavad Gita, what we're talking about is the choice to grow, the choice to evolve, the choice to turn towards a higher power and say, I need some help. I need to learn some different ways of being in this life because right now I'm faced with a difficult situation. The difficult situation that we face globally right now is an easy one to start with. Pandemic. How do you make choices within a pandemic? How do you make choices for, this is a good one. Here's a good question to ask yourself. How do I stay happy and believe that it's all working out for me when people are suffering and dying? Is that selfish of me? Is it wrong to be excited? Is it wrong for me to be hopeful when there are so many people that are suffering? Does that make me a selfish person? Does that make me a bad person? And there are so many questions like that are going to come up for you based on your personal experience. That's just one reflective question that you can ask yourself. Like, do I have to believe everything that my parents believed about me? Do I have to believe everything that I learned in school? Do I have to stay with the same religion? Do I have to stay with the same group of friends? Do I have to stay in the same place just because that's where I've always been? If I look into my heart and I'm called to something else and I'm called somewhere else, that calling is coming from somewhere that's real. That's coming from your spiritual essence. That's your inner knowing telling you that you have a path and you have a purpose. You have a responsibility, a calling. And if you allow your past conditioning and your past fears to decide for you how you're going to respond to that calling, chances are your responses are going to be very short and they're going to be very infrequent. A person who's worked through their inner stuff, a person who has come to terms with their purpose, who is ready to live their purpose, a person who is getting involved in introspection and in this daily practice of spiritual development, personal discovery, is actively seeking those places where they're ready to grow, where they're ready to evolve, where they're ready to, I don't even want to say level up. It's more like diving in. It's really diving into your own destiny head first. And some things that you're going to interact with along that path are going to seem like it's what you want. But really what you'll be doing when you first take that trip, or when you first date that person, or when you first make that change, you're still going to be playing out old patterns. You're going to have to be really gentle with yourself because you're going to play a lot of tricks on yourself to lead yourself back into your old life, lead yourself back into these old patterns because you don't know what you don't know. So you'll have to really check in with your body and listen through the practice of yoga. Is this decision that I'm making, is this truly aligned with my heart, or is this something that I thought that I wanted, but now that I have it, it's actually not bringing me fulfillment? This actually is not at all what I was looking for. And my lesson is to know that and not stay attached to being here. Because the whole point of leaving the other thing and coming here was to learn how to not be attached. And I'm not saying detachment from everything that's great. I'm not saying, you have to detach from your possessions or detach from your family or detach from your friends. Just detach from the beliefs that aren't serving you anymore. Detach from the belief that you can't have what you want. Detach from the belief that you can't do what you're going to do, that you want to do, because you're not a worthy person. Because it always happens for other people and it doesn't happen for you. That's a lame excuse. It's a lame excuse. And I am not going to allow you to have lame excuses. So, meh. All right. That being said, we're going to chant a little bit. That's how we roll. We sing some songs. We chant holy names. And then we dive into the Bhagavad Gita. We are on... We're into the modes of material nature. How you doing, Claudine? Good to see you. All right, so my harmonium, I have a Bhava harmonium, or Bhav, if you want to say it like that. And right now, I have two keys that are droning. The one key that's droning is A flat, or it'd be G sharp and C sharp. Those are my two. So the black key in between the two black keys and the second register up, and also the pair of black keys, the first one. So yeah, and also my harmonium is tuned to A440. So it's not just tuned to itself. So if you're playing along with me, good. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing well. It's good to see you. It's good to feel you and see you in my consciousness. So if you want to play along and it sounds different, one, you might not have these two drones down, and two, your harmonium might be tuned differently than mine. So I'm just going to play these drones. And then the root note of the scale that I'm in is in C sharp. Sniffle breaks. I haven't been going outside. I've been drinking lots of water. I'm taking good care of myself. I don't know why I sniffle so much. I don't know. I take medicine. I try to sleep good. I try to eat good. I try to take good care of myself. You know what I'm saying? Maybe this is this thing in my nose is forces beyond my control. I'm not sure. I don't know why I turn Russian when I talk about my allergies today, but there you go. Humor is the spice of life. So let's start with Ramadasa. Just allow the sound of the harmonium to seep into your consciousness. sa, sa, se, so. Ramada, sa, sa, se, so. Ramada, sa, sa, se, so. Radhe, 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 Govinda Radhe. 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 Oh, Radhe, Radhe, Govinda, Govinda Radhe. Radhe, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe. Radhe, Radhe, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe. Oh, Radhe, Radhe, Govinda, Govinda, Radhe. Radhe, 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 Govinda, Radhe. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda 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 Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya 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 Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya 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 Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Jeva, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Jeva, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Kali Durga, Jeva, Kali Durga, Jeva, Kali Durga, Jeva. Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Hare Om. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. To life. To life. L'chaim. L'chaim, l'chaim, to life. Cheers. Cheers to life. That's my pose, my daily pose. I don't have a daily pose. What am I talking about? All right. So, the chapter is 14. The topic, the modes of material nature. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. It means that God is always in your heart, and that the shining lamp of knowledge is always lit. That light never goes out on you. This knowledge is always available. It's always available. This knowledge is always available for you. And there are going to be times where you'll find yourself in ignorant states where you're just like, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea what has happened to me. And you're, again, that's where you're coming to a crossroads in life and where you're having to make a choice. And this book is all about choices. It's all about learning the difference between what's real and what's not. And it's a conversation between God in human form, God in a personal form, and a great warrior on the field of battle where they're getting ready to, where a lot of people are about to die. And this man, this warrior, asks Krishna, who is his chariot driver and his friend, to advise him on how to practice the spiritual science of yoga, so that he can learn to remain steady with the choices that he needs to make in life. And this is something that we all face. It's an eternal question. How do I remain steady and make the decision that I need to make so that I can create happiness and fulfillment in my life? Ugh. All right. So the three modes of ignorance, the three modes of ignorance, the three modes of, let's take this off. Good hair day, bad hair day, hair day. Should be lucky at 39 years old to have any kind of hair day, honestly. All right. Chapter 14, you can download a copy of the Bhagavad Gita as it is from asitis.com. And we're on page 224, verse 18. I was requested to read a little slower, so I'm going to work on that today. Thank you for the request. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. The higher planets, the earthly planets, and the hellish worlds are these three gradations of reality. And you can live inside the heavenly planets, on the earthly planets, or in the hellish planets, here in this realm, in this body. You can live a heavenly life if you're content with the choices that you make, and you're grounded into yourself. You can live a passionate life and have lots of ups and downs and have, many great experiences, and you can live a full, rich, wonderful life. And you can do it in this life, or you can live a hell inside your own mind. In this life, you can live on the hellish planets of jealousy, anger, fear, mistrust. All of that can exist here now. Verse 19. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of material nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. So this is Krishna talking, saying that every activity that takes place here in this realm is guided by goodness, passion, or ignorance. And there isn't any getting out of that. There's no escaping that nature. However, you can transcend it. Seems like a little bit of a paradox. How can I escape? How can I not escape it, but I can transcend it? Let's read on and find out. Verse 20. Well, here's the end of the purport for that verse, is that for one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature slowly ceases. So you can't escape the reality of it, but you can escape and you can transcend the influence of it on you. You don't get away from material life. It just stops affecting you in the same way. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three qualities, that person can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. You become free from birth and death and old age. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to die. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get old. It means that your perspective, your attachment to staying where you're at, your fear of death, your fear of old age, your suffering over these things, that ceases. And that's the nectar that you're enjoying in life. You're enjoying the nectar of devotion, the nectar of contentment, the nectar of bliss, of the nectar of knowledge, the real nectar of knowledge and wisdom coming together within you. Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to those qualities? What are their behavior? And how do they transcend the modes of nature?" So this is a great question. Like, what are the signs of someone who is in this transcendental state? How will I know? How will I know if someone else or if I myself am in the transcendental state? What are the behaviors of a person that's in that state? And how do you transcend these modes? If that's where the nectar is, I want to transcend. I want to elevate, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "The person who neither hates nor desires the development of the three qualities of illumination, attachment, and delusion, and who is transcendentally situated, remaining neutral through all the reactions of the modes, thinking that they may work, but that they are that this person." I'm going to start this again. I'm just going to reuse the he because it's a little bit difficult to like flip it. This is a disclaimer. Just because it's referencing the word he doesn't mean that you can't be affected as a woman. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "He who neither hates nor desires the development of the three qualities of illumination, attachment, and delusion, who is transcendently situated, remaining neutral through all the reactions of the modes, thinking that they may work, but that he is transcendental. He who looks equally upon happiness and distress, upon a pebble, a stone, or a piece of gold, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady and well situated in defamation or in adoration. He who receives honor and dishonor equally, who treats friend and enemy alike, and who is not engaged in material activities. He is said to have transcended the three modes of nature." How do you live and not engage in material activities? When you know that it's only the body and the body interacting with the field of activities, the field of experience, and that your consciousness actually does nothing, then you are transcending the modes of material nature. The happiness and distress, when you see good or bad as the same, you treat them equally. Knowing that good, bad, right, wrong, hot, cold, those are manifestations, visual manifestations of the modes of nature, that yet they don't affect you, then you are practicing detachment, where the soul and the self are detached from the material outcomes. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Unfailing in all circumstances. It's a lot of pressure. Sometimes I think that level of pressure and maybe this is why being a devotee and setting yourself to being a devotee in this regard is so important. Because in order to be theoretically unfailing, then you have to structure your whole life around it. And leave no room for anything else to kind of seep in and contaminate the work that you're doing on your soul to elevate yourself and detach from the clutches of material nature, which you can't escape them, but you can transcend them. So I guess unfailing would, to put an easier spin on this, is that even if you sink down, even if you get lost in material reality for a little bit, and you end up making some choices, or you end up seeing things in a wrong way, if you really understand this, then you can catch yourself. It doesn't stay a permanent failure. It means that for a moment you got caught. You got caught in illusion. You just got stuck. Like Coldplay says, I just got lost. Just got lost. That's all. Sometimes it's fun to get lost. But you have to have the right map to get yourself back. And this is kind of the map to get yourself back on track in the material world. But also, this is making a reference to the fact that once you transcend the modes of material nature, you come to the level of Brahman. That's a tough level to reach. That's like it's a lot. There's a lot of forces that are working against you, but there's also a lot of forces that are working for you to achieve that. Verse 27, and I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Oh, pretty cool. Purport. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the super soul, is the middle, the second stage of transcendental realization. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. Impregnating the inferior material nature with fragments of the superior nature is the spiritual touch. When a living entity conditioned by material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage in self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise to the Paramatma realization, and then to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in Vedic literature. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in the impersonal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself from the impersonal conception of Brahman to the higher stage of the personal conception of God runs the risk of falling down. Why? Because when you're referencing the impersonal, it's ambiguous. It's the voice in the sky. It's the burning bush. It's without the personal traits of the Supreme Personality. You have no map for what you're trying to remold your personality as. That makes sense? You have to look at this from 2 different sides. The understanding that there is this amorphous and this essence that flows to and through and between everything. That's the Brahman conception. Personalizing that is the super soul. And then taking it to the level of being devoted to the qualities of the Supreme Person, that is Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that a person may rise to the stage of impersonal Brahman, but without going further, with no information of the Supreme Person, his intelligence is not perfectly clear. Therefore, in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, there is the chance of falling down if one is not engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Because that devotional service to the Lord keeps you on track, keeps you reminding what is the goal, where is all this really coming from, and where is it really going? Therefore, in spite of being raised, when one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendently blissful. The Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences, and when a devotee approaches him, there is reciprocation with these opulences. The servant of the king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king. Therefore, imperishable happiness and eternal life accompany devotional service. All conceptions of Brahman, eternity, and imperishability are included in devotional service. They are all subordinate for a person engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the matter of the 3 modes of material nature. We're going to leave off there. We're going to end a little early. We're going to start tomorrow on chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, which is an interesting chapter. The transcending of life and death, and birth, life, and death. That happening in this life and that blissful nature, I believe that if you wanted to take it from this whole idea of immortality, which can seem a little bit ambiguous, it can seem a little bit fairy tale and far-fetched, this is something that's greater than yourself, and you're always connected to something that's greater than yourself, and you're working on behalf of that, then your life becomes very peaceful. Your life becomes a life of meaning and fulfillment, and it's not a life that you're scared to lose. It's not. There's no fear of losing that. There's also no fear of being here and being hurt by that life. So essentially, it's okay. You can live. You can have as many lifetimes as you want in devotional service, and then life is a beautiful, peaceful thing. But if you're living in the hellish planets and you're living in terrible, your life is just not what you want it to be, then yeah, you're gonna fear death, and you're gonna fear old age, and you're gonna try and fight against that. Because you're unhappy with your life. You're unhappy with life as it is. And the idea that you're missing out or that you're losing something is prominent in your consciousness. So those are the things to really work on. Those are the things to really notice when you're looking at, how do I feel about my life? How do I feel about the choices that I make? Because you can make different choices and live a happier life. You don't have to just be stuck with the same choices that you've always made. You can make different choices. You can transcend. But if you don't believe that, then you're just going to keep suffering and suffering and suffering aimlessly for no reason. And it's not for, I can't say that. That's not true. It's not for no reason. Everything is getting you to this point. Everything is getting you to the point where you're finally going to be ready to transcend. You're finally going to be ready to have that light, to turn towards the light of knowledge that shatters the darkness born of ignorance. You're not going to want to be ignorant anymore. You're not going to want to be in the shadows anymore of your own life. You're going to want to step up and step forward and create something with your life. So with that being said, those are the modes of material nature. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. Thank you so much for letting me serve you. Thank you to the body. Thank you to this space. And thank you to all of our teachers. And thank you to the spiritual science and practice of yoga. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you soon. Oh, namaste. Word up. Enjoy. Peace.